Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of KSP Revival. This episode we're going to be wrapping up our Yunxiao star system exploration by exploring one last comet. And then after that we're going to be constructing a brand new interstellar vehicle because Nebulon is extremely laggy for some reason. The new vehicle will be called the Ultimatum, will be powered by graviolium augmented antimatter engines. They offer billions and billions of Delta V, which is definitely not realistic. I had to buff some parts specifically just so it would run for a lot longer. But still going to be a very, very powerful engine. Now this is Hu, which is the comet of the Yunxiao system. Has a very massive tail, and it's also peanut shaped. It has some very interesting surface features, just a few geysers where it probably gets that tail from. Looks as if it almost has an atmosphere, yet it doesn't, because it's just too light to actually have one. It just has this really cool trail though, because it's constantly being melted away by the starlight of Yunxiao. It also has a very eccentric and elliptical orbit. It's also very inclined, so getting an encounter with this is pretty awkward sometimes, but thankfully with warp drives you just gotta warp straight towards it and you're there. Also, sorry if I still sound a little bit weird, I'm still kind of recovering from my cold, because I'm only doing this voiceover a few days after I uploaded my previous video, so I may still sound a little bit sick. Even when it's sped up 3 times in post-processing, you can still see a bit of lag that I had to endure when flying the Nebulon. I have isolated the issue down to blue shift, but apparently it's not entirely blue shift that's at fault, because usually it shouldn't be causing this amount of lag, and maybe some other mod in my pot of poison that is KSP Resurgence / Revival mod pack that may be causing more issues. Could be the fact that it's a system replacer or maybe an outdated part mod that I'm using. Who knows, I'll have to figure it out eventually. Because I do want to use blue shift in future series, especially my KSS2 one. I've also finally decided on, before I get to that actually, there's a really weird glitch here where it really lags me out when I'm approaching it, but when I get close to it the lag goes away. I think it might be like a weird level of detail glitch, maybe with parallax, but I'm not sure. Anyway, as I was saying, these voiceovers are a little improv, so sometimes I forget what actually happens in the video and get interrupted by an important event that happens in the video. So as I was saying, I have actually decided not to add any extra planet packs to this series because I want to save the extra planet packs for other series. I would like to do an after Kerbal series because somebody's making a graphical upgrade for it, so it's going to be compatible with stuff like volumetric clouds, parallax continue in the very near future. So I'd love to do a series on that as kind of a prequel for KSP Resurgence / Revival. I would also love to do a Beyond Home series, but the Ballistic Fox's graphical improvements for that mod have yet to come out. At least for the ones for parallax continue and volumetric clouds. Speaking of volumetric, we just passed through a volumetric geyser filled with a bunch of little pebbles of snow. Landing on Hu is going to be tricky because the gravity is just so low, it might as well not even exist at all. The other weird thing about Hu is because the height map is a little bit weird. There's actually a really nice ledge over here that we can just land on. In fact, if I were to establish a surface base here, it'd definitely be in this exact spot, just because of how flat and convenient it is and how it's positioned in one of the more interesting spots on the comet. The 2 planet packs I was thinking about adding to Revival were Eternal and Starpunk cluster. I was thinking about adding those instead to my future after Kerbal series. Because I don't want to add those to my Promised World / KSS2 series, because that series is already going to have enough destinations to visit. In fact, I believe KSS2 alone adds like over 100 bodies to visit. And I don't want to cause any RAM-related crashes from overloading my install. Also, I don't really want to have too much bloat in my series. So after I explore the Atlas system in Cosmic Serenity 3.0, I'm going to put Revival on hold until another update for Celestial Harmony or Cosmic Serenity comes out. We just did a little spin there. So this series is kind of going to go on a hiatus for a while after a couple more episodes come out. But don't worry, I'll be very active in my other series, just Wayfinders and perhaps some future series later. I really want to get started on my KSS2 / Promised World series because I know that's what everyone's crazy about nowadays. But I'm just waiting for the update that adds some Promised Worlds planets as outer planets to the Kerbal system, because apparently that was the original plan in KSP2. I was thinking about using OPM because there's some graphical enhancements that came out made by Space Potato, but I don't feel like using OPM now that Promised Worlds kind of has its own outer planets thing to it. When that update comes out, I really would like to actually start using it. And I believe that's when I'll start my actual series on Promised Worlds and KSS2. But enough about future series, it's time we get back to the actual mission we're doing in the video. Like all low-gravity worlds, rendezvous can be pretty fun. All you gotta do is burn straight to your target, do a mid-course correction to actually make sure you got a good intersect. And then just wait a minute. Though sometimes this may not be reliable, because sometimes, in my experience, the game has crashed because of this in very low-gravity environments that have been pretty buggy. So maybe it's best you should avoid this when possible. Just if the intersect icons start flickering, at least in this mod pack, try to change your trajectory or else the game might crash. That's how it is in my experience, at least. I must say, here's a very interesting atmosphere with the icy haze it has completely around its vicinity. At this point, we've explored every location in the Yunxiao system, so it's time to go home. I might want to colonize one of these places later, especially if we plan to go to the Atlas system more, because the Yunxiao system is actually pretty close to the Atlas system, both of which are added by Cosmic Serenity 3.0. If anywhere, I prefer to colonize a vacuum moon or planet just because vacuum moons are easier to launch ISVs from. Whereas if you have an atmospheric place, if you want to launch an ISV in one go, you have to put in a massive fairing with a massive rocket. Whereas a lighter destination will actually make it a lot easier. Now it's time to fire up the warp drive one last time to be able to warp home. Unfortunately, this will be Nebulon's last journey, because it's extremely laggy. I want to retire it. Excuse the minor visual glitches with a entire craft flashing white. I have no idea what causes that. It's a recurring issue I have when traveling in interstellar space. It's plagued me in Resurgence when I went to the Chaos and Hades systems. Warp drives are pretty overpowered, can actually reach home in a matter of hours. We wore a smidge off, so we do have to change course slightly midway to actually make sure we're heading towards Sanctar, the home of the Kerbals. If you're wondering what happened to Kerbin, this planet pack takes place eons in the future where Kerbin is no more. In fact, Kerbal is no more. It's practically a very, very dim white dwarf now. It takes place after Beyond Home. So hopefully the remnants of Kerbal and the Tempest system from Beyond Home get added soon. Well, the Tempest system is not going to be called Tempest, it's going to be called the Misfortune system, apparently. It's going to come out eventually, but it's going to take a while, just because Proxima is working on a Cosmic Serenity a lot more. Just because everyone's more interested in interstellar content rather than to be honest, I don't really get why people are kind of having aversion to system replacers. I love them because they give you a new system to explore. Because I kind of got sick of the stock system because I'm sick of landing on Kerbal, Mung, and Minimus over and over again. I just need something to shake it up a little bit. And for some reason, people just don't realize how fun system replacers are. Hopefully my videos can change that, because all my series are based on system replacers. Revival and Resurgence are based off of Celestial Harmony, while Wayfinders is based off of Galileo's Planet Pack, which is much older, but a lot more playable now thanks to the latest graphics mods and compatibility patches. Although they're not exactly the best, there are some things in my Galileo's Planet Pack install that I wish looked a little better. Maybe I should make sure if there are any updates available that fix some of the issues I've been experiencing. Fear not, we won't have to deal with this lag for much longer. I only sent 7 Kerbals up here, which is the maximum capacity, I can't speak today. The maximum capacity of the Helium X surface exploration vehicle. So I can just undock it and just send it straight home. Another weird issue I have, when I transfer Kerbals, sometimes when I clicked on the part, it wouldn't register. I just have to keep on clicking it. It's just the most annoying thing. I believe it's caused by this horrible lag. Now that's it for the Nebulon, so I won't be having to experience this lag anymore. Thanks for serving us, Nebulon. You were great for making cinematics. Of course, I can't forget to collect all the signs that I deposited in the probe core, because that's a very convenient button, Container Collect All, that actually sucks all your science experiments and stores them in that very single part. So it's very convenient to have for Grand Tour missions such as these. Now I will wait in orbit for a little bit, just to make sure the Kerbal Space Center is actually on the daytime side. I mean, there's a couple lag spikes while I'm warping next because I'm actually actively shifting in and out of physics range of the Nebulon. Mildly annoying, but it won't be an issue for much longer. We're coming in from a slightly higher orbit, so our descent might be a little extra toasty. So for this reason, I'm constructing extra maneuver to kind of slow down a little bit. And then more of boosts us up a little upward. It gives us a bit of a more steep descent into the atmosphere. So this may not have actually been the best idea, but the Helium X can survive a whole lot of exotic atmospheric conditions. Besides, we're going to see worse in the coming episodes. Because the Atlas system, every planet is a challenge to land on. First we got Icarus, which is a high Jupiter, you can't land on that. Then we have Erebus, which is a Venusian planet with slightly higher gravity than Kerbal, and 95 atmospheres of pressure. That's going to be ridiculous. Then there's Poseidon, which is a super Kerbal with, I think it's like 1.4 Gs of gravity. Also a slightly thicker atmosphere. And also that was a pretty great landing. Then after that there's Plugus, which is more like a Tylo planet. It has high gravity and no atmosphere to speak of. So every planet's going to be a challenge, but how are you going to get there? This is where the Ultimatum ISV comes in, which is a huge interstellar vehicle I've just constructed on screen via Kerbal colonies. Unfortunately, it has no electric charge, so I have to enable infinite electricity to actually be able to start up the fusion reactor. I won't call this cheating, just imagine I'm using the power facilities on the colony to actually power the Ultimatum temporarily. To actually start up the fusion reactor, finally we have power, practically unlimited electricity. Look how much electricity you're getting. That fusion reactor filled a small 5-meter Stirling super battery in seconds. To be honest, I'm not sure if I actually need that fusion reactor in the first place. It's a little bit overkill. To actually launch this vehicle, I will be using Methalox engines, because usually the antimatter engine actually has a very good TWR and will actually need a booster of this size. However, that one's actually being augmented by Graviolium, because I'm actually using a part in the Blue Shift experimental files It actually gives me an inertia dampener, which allows me to buff the ISP and thrust of an engine massively, at the cost of having to use graviolium. And unfortunately, the Creek colony didn't have any graviolium, because it can't actually make any. So like Nebulon, I had to go to Magnifica's exosphere and scoop some. So in a way, this is going to be very similar to Nebulon. Except after scooping some graviolium, I'm actually going to have to go to Aglarka, because Aglarka, the other Hycean planet, the other gas giant in the system, actually has a lot more hydrogen in its exosphere than Magnifica. Like, if I were to scoop hydrogen out of Magnifica's exosphere, it'd take me absolutely ages to get enough to actually fill my tanks. Whereas if I went to, say, Aglarka, it'd take me only like a month. I feel like Celestial Harmony, in terms of beauty, is definitely underrated, because the Creek, Moon, and Magnifica system is one of the best places in the entire system. Magnifica is like a giant magenta gas giant with rings, and creates a cool frozen beach planet. It's a very beautiful place. Also, I am experiencing this weird glitch whenever I activate my RCS thrusters, the game lags out a ton. Don't worry, I actually fixed this issue. For some reason, it was trying to play a sound source that was disabled or something. So I just went to the configs for the RCS plasma engines and removed anything having to do with sound, and that just fixed the issue magically, so that was a very convenient and easy fix, which unfortunately is pretty rare in Kerbal Space Program. I had to be pretty careful during this retrograde burn, because I actually almost dipped into the atmosphere of Magnifica. That probably wouldn't have been great, because this is a gas giant, and combined with the atmospheric density and the amount of speeds you have to travel to get into orbit around one, it's probably going to be a very toasty re-entry that vaporizes my ISV in 2 seconds. Thankfully, we were able to achieve a very low orbit safely, the optimal altitude for harvesting graviolium, which I believe is as close to the planet as possible. Though I could be wrong, there may be a weirder orbit you need to actually maximize graviolium output. But it doesn't matter, I forgot to record, so now we're away from Magnifica and heading towards Aglarka, burning a long time to actually go on a very, very speedy trajectory straight towards Aglarka, which is a Hycean planet and also might be one of my favorite destinations here. The surface of Aglarka is entirely comprised of ocean. It is actually impossible to land on it, so to speak, though I believe there are a few little icebergs on there that might have collisions, at least if you have the parallax ones enabled. I haven't actually landed on those because I gave the landing vehicle I had for Aglarka no landing gear, because I wasn't actually anticipating on landing on land, so I couldn't even try it. Maybe I should explore Aglarka in the future, maybe make a sea-based colony or something that floats. That'd actually be pretty cool, because I don't think anyone's ever done that before. I mean, I did see a video where some guy making an underwater colony. Maybe I should do something similar, but I don't know how deep Aglarka's oceans go. I did have to make a minor mid-course correction to actually make sure I was going on the proper direction. At this point, I should probably confess I did make some major buffs to the inertial dampener of the Ultimatum ISV. It just used way too much graviolium, so if I time warped for a few hours, it completely deplete all my graviolium, which is not ideal. Also, having it deplete that fast would kind of make interstellar burns with it kind of impossible, so I massively buffed it to actually give it the resource consumption it needed to actually last a while. If I'm doing interstellar transfers, I still actually have to worry about managing my supply and refueling. But I wasn't able to I didn't actually have to worry about consumption on the Nebulon because I just had so much of it. So thankfully this is kind of a balance change. I actually have to worry about refueling instead of just going all crazy. Now it's all fueled up, except for a bit of fusion fuel. Thankfully, I'll just send up a tanker to fill it up. At this point we can just go to Sanctuary and await the pickup of our crew and vehicles and everything else. In the end, this ISV will accumulate like around 200 parts, which will actually be somewhat laggy, but not as laggy as Nebulon by far. So it's still going to be very, very playable and much more enjoyable to actually record this footage. The other thing about the Ultimatum is that since the engine is so efficient, I have like 4 billion meters per second of delta V. I can't actually show that on the delta V readout because there's only a certain amount of antimatter in the containers, but it's constantly being refueled by the antimatter factory, which converts a bunch of electricity and fission pellets into antimatter. So it probably has like billions of meters per second of delta V, which is like several times the speed of light. So I can just waste as much fuel as I want to be honest. Fortunately, with these really long burns, the deceleration burns are also pretty annoying, so you can't exactly just time them right. The stock maneuver tool is sometimes pretty accurate, but it often has you burning a little bit too late. Well, actually, not the stock one, the Kerbal Engineered Redux one. The stock one never works. In fact, I actually had to turn up my thrust limiter to make sure I was going to end up in an orbit. The whole reason why I usually have my thrust limiter set to 12 on this is because without the thrust limiter limiting its thrust, if you're at 100, say, I have a TWR of like 50. That could probably tear the entire vessel apart, even with Kerbal joint reinforcement installed. And yes, I should also mention I did install that mod because for some reason Excalibur just kept falling apart for no reason. So I think I should, in my craft files, just start adding Kerbal joint reinforcement as a dependency for my ISVs. Especially the Ultimatum. Excalibur and Nebulon didn't have this issue, but when it comes to massive ISVs like this, you don't need to install Kerbal joint reinforcement. But if you don't, you're probably going to end up having this fall apart like a Lego contraption every 2 seconds, which is definitely not ideal. You know what else isn't ideal? Olia just completely coming in and swinging you straight into the atmosphere of Sanctar. Not ideal, but when you have a binary system like this, there's going to be weird orbits like this. Now, the Ultimatum now lies in orbit to await its crew. Unfortunately, its mission will have to wait until next episode. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this one, and I'll see you all later.